Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. Good evening to you. Hope you're well. It's Thursday night. I think it's the 14th of November, and I have a special guest. My favorite Professor Penn podcast guest, Captain Maureen Bannon, is in the house joining us right now from, are you home in Florida now?
I am home in Florida.
It's great to see you. It's
You
great to see
too.
you. Tanner's in studio. He's not mic'd. He's glad to see you too. He better be.
Surprise! I'm back.
So we got headquartered with, you know how I feel. I'm going to tell you, I'm so intense about what's going on. It's great to see you. Maybe I'll just get into a relaxed mode and we can just have fun. But I'm so intense because we're out here in the streets, right?
Mm-hmm.
The posse. I'm part of the posse. I'm at the front lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to make it up on our end, the creative ones of us down here, because just because we're on the front lines, we're grundoons, but it doesn't mean we're not thinking, okay? What do we do out here in the field is what my concern is, and I'm trying to understand what's going on. And I don't mean to be too intense, but I'm overwhelmed out here because we had all these appointments yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm. We did.
And everybody's like, wow, wow. Now I'm going to give you my view of this from the field. There's an
Okay.
old saying in Asia. Ready now?
Mm-hmm.
To make the snakes move, you beat the
Mm-hmm.
grass. To make the
Okay.
snakes move, you beat the grass.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and I'm watching because we know who they are. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody gets a chance to come out and have a change of heart, right? So now we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have some interesting opportunities, I would say, to see who's what and where in this Congress. And I want to know from headquarters, what are we supposed to do with the information? Because we're going to see it, right? Am I right
Mm-hmm.
or am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right. But I'm trying to grasp what what you mean.
We're
Like, are
out.
you asking what we expect to see because we're pulling so many members of Congress up to the administration? Or are you saying from those positions in the administration by those people?
I'm saying those appointments are so upsetting to the Congress members, the caucus.
They're upsetting because they're actually going to expose the corruptness and the rot in a lot of these organizations that has been going on for years, and they've been able to get away with it for so long because everyone that's been in those seats before has just turned a blind eye or not been in the seat long enough to fully expose the rot. So I think that that's why it scares so many people, or so many people have so many issues with a lot of these appointments. And I'm not saying conservatives. I mean, the Sec Def appointment has liberals still in meltdown, and that was 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Um, Matt Gaetz is Attorney General. That has people in meltdown, and that was less than 24 hours ago, or probably a little less, maybe 24 hours ago. But I think that yes, you see the meltdown from the left and even some establishment Republicans, but it's because one, these appointments are going to expose the rot, like I said, that are going on in these different organizations, but they're also, if you look at the ages of a lot of these people, they're millennials. They're the next generation of MAGA. So President Trump realizes that, yes, we have 4 years of him, but this is his last time in office. He has to leave a legacy. And I think that he's doing that with who he's putting in these positions right now.
Boy, that's an excellent spin on this I hadn't thought of. That is very
I mean,
I
if you look at JD Vance is 40, Matt Gaetz is 42, Tulsi's 52. Like in between all these appointments, it's like 40 to 55, I think. So part millennial, part Gen X.
Got it.
But it's the next wave of MAGA.
Wow, that's gonna freak the boomers out.
It probably is, but like I said, Trump, these are his last 4 years in office. And we can't go back to this dumpster fire we have in the White House right now. And if we don't set up a plan and a legacy, then we run the risk of another dumpster fire in 4 years.
Well, let me tell you what I'm passing on to the grassroots down here.
Mhm.
Because here's what I think, and I want clearance from Clarence, okay? Because I started this yesterday. No, seriously, I got invited to a party.
Uh-huh.
A friend of mine,
Yeah.
I mean, we can name names. I mean, because I think we're going to start naming names. But I want,
Well,
but really, you know this person. This is a nice person. She ran, she lost. Cut down. She got cut down. You know her. You know this person. You know her. Anyhow, we're going to let her be anonymous until I get clearance on this because I'm getting aggressive over here with Free
mhm,
People Radio. Oh, after what happened in the campaign, in the party, right? Here's what I'm thinking. Just, I want approval. Ma'am, I
mhm.
think every American citizen, if they want to see President Trump succeed, have to immediately figure out how to become delegates in the Republican Party and go to convention. And when these snakes show up for endorsement, they must be defeated and be replaced by a new generation of American nationalist candidates. That's what I think we have to do here in the trench. Did I get this correct?
Yeah.
Great. How do we decide who gets to stay and who gets to go? That's
Who's
just,
on who's on board with the America
yeah,
First
we
President
don't,
Trump agenda?
yeah, because these appointments are complex.
Yeah, but you can't make that assessment like right now because a lot of these people will say they're either on board or they're not. If they say they're on board with President Trump now, you know, but you have to watch their actions. Do they actually support? And I'm not saying like the appointments. I'm saying in the grassroots level what you're talking about.
Right.
Because in the state of Minnesota, you could say, "Oh yeah, I support Trump." State of Minnesota GOP actively worked against President Trump and some of the Republican candidates to include Royce.
Oh, please, let's just,
Because if they actually wanted President Trump to win and Royce to win, they would have put forth effort because they didn't seem to put forth any effort into helping them win. And I get, you know, and I said this on election night, President Trump did lose Minnesota, but he lost it by less than 5% compared to Joe Biden, who I believe was almost at 10% in 2020 or stole it in 2020 from the state of Minnesota from Trump. It's a little weird to me that the governor of Minnesota, who's on the Democratic ticket, can't get his state for more than 4.3% over Trump.
it's a very interesting thing going on here politically. There's a friend of mine who is a very good blogger, and he sent me um, pictures of the electoral map in Minnesota going back to 2006, and you can just watch the state turning Republican, not because of the Republican Party of Minnesota, but because of Donald Trump. It's the MAGA movement and the posse in the war room. And then Royce, of course, was the most red state we've had. We are only missing control of a couple areas, and the state's Republican. And, you know, pursuant to what you're saying, and this is all kind of one, it's a local conversation, but this has, I think, needs to be sorted out in every state. This election here could have been so powerful for the Republican Party because Royce was the perfect candidate for them to back and give the notoriety so that he was known in the city. And they didn't do it. That's what Marina's saying. That was a choice. They iced him out of the money, the party's support. They iced him out. And I'm mad about it, but that's politics, right, Maureen?
It is, but at the same time, not only did they ice him out of the money, it seemed like they didn't put forth any of their grassroots effort.
No, that's half true. We had some very, 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 we appreciate the support of many of the party officers. But
Yeah,
we,
but they did it on their oh, okay, let me take that back. They did it on their own accord because they saw him as a strong candidate and wanted to get behind him. The Minnesota GOP as a whole didn't say, "Hey, whoever wants to support Royce, we'll," like they didn't collectively take a group of volunteers and come to the campaign and say, "Hey, we have these volunteers from the Minnesota GOP." That's what I'm trying to say is as a collective whole, they weren't going to the campaign, correct me if I'm wrong, and saying, "Hey, how can we help? How can we give you volunteers?" It was party officials that outside of that structure said, "We believe in this candidate. We want to support him."
we
Right?
had candidates that said they wouldn't appear with them.
But correct, am I right about the Minnesota GOP? That's how it was
Oh, it was worse.
party
I mean, I
party
could,
officer party officers on their own accord, not like that just happened to be officers of the
no,
Minnesota
no,
GOP.
please let me just put a spin on this. I'm not arguing with you, ma'am. I'm just in the party. There are complete intact segments of the state where the
Mhm.
party in those areas are with the American Nationalist MAGA movement. That's who they are. And in their backyard, they rule. And they were very supportive. And the
But I-
battle, go ahead.
but I'm saying them as people supported Royce, and they happened to be Minnesota GOP
Okay,
members.
okay, okay, okay.
Minnesota GOP didn't say, "Hey, who here wants to support Royce White?"
Yeah, but
Okay,
see,
all you guys do. So we as a whole
can I
in the Minnesota GOP will come to the campaign and say, "Hey, we want to help you in any way." And oh, by the way, we have these party officials that would that's where I'm saying that these people saw something in Royce and just happened to be Minnesota GOP officials.
you know,
They're
c I understand exactly what you're saying, but not to tip a card or to play a hand, uh, you know what? Hey, um, I don't see it that way. I don't think that they're the GOP. I think that I'm the GOP, and I didn't want it to be that way, and I'm all for reconciliation, but we have what would be called, and I said this at a meeting last night. I told you this is all gonna tie together. I went to this party I was talking about, and it was a very lovely party, and I don't go to parties. In fact, a woman said to me, she goes, "When's the last time you relaxed like this?" And I couldn't remember when. But before I relaxed, I screamed at these people
Mhm.
because here's how I view this Minnesota GOP and every GOP where this is going on. President Trump won. Okay. Now let's think this through. He won. He won, right? Doesn't
Mhm.
this kind of end the argument for a while?
In what way?
Well, like if you're in the Republican Party and you secretly want to get rid of Donald Trump, but you're just acting like you're for Donald Trump, or you don't know how to act, but you just
Mhm.
want this time to pass, you're really not supporting his agenda. He needs the support of the entire American people.
Mhm.
This is a cultural revolution, what's going on here. Am I overstating what's happening?
No.
Is this the biggest? Tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't get to spend time with your dad. Is your dad saying that this is the biggest thing that happened since 1946?
Yes.
Because it is. And you have to be old enough to know. the whole paradigm is going to get changed if but we have to succeed.
Mhm.
This will be
We also have to keep control. So yeah, we have control of the White House, control of the Senate, control of the House. President Trump is picking cabinet members from the House of Representatives, which means that there will be special elections for those different congressmen, at this point congressmen, well, and congresswomen that have been pulled up to different positions.
seems like a
Which
lot of
means,
seems like a lot of them are getting pulled out of Florida. Am I did I miss that?
we have two congressmen pulled from the great state of Florida, which means, and Speaker Johnson said yesterday in, I think it was a presser that he gave, that it's up, like, the governor will start the clock on when a special election has to be done by. So Governor DeSantis is in Italy, so they were going to talk today about starting the clock today so that the special election would be held and over with by the time the new Congress is sworn in. Um, what I was not expecting was Congressman Gates to resign the same day he was nominated as Attorney General, but that's neither here nor there. Um,
What did
but I
but just out of curiosity, you might know this, and if you don't, I'm sorry I set you up. Do you know what Congressman Gates' margin of victory was in the last election?
I believe 20 to 40%.
It was big time, wasn't it?
I think so.
Uh,
Now you're gonna make me go back and look. I think it was 40%, but
I mean, there's some
I
pretty
think it was 40% in the primary against his Republican opponent. But hold on.
well, I'm just saying because I think there's some pretty astute political insight going on here. I was talking to Tanner before we came on. He was asking, he goes, man, the Democrats just seem so hapless in this last election. I said, no, we just got better. I mean, we're getting so much better at what we're doing.
And their messaging sucked.
Their messaging sucked because we deconstructed it. It worked for the previous 75 years just fine.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Hold on. 32%. So I was correct in my little 20, so
Right.
40%.
I mean,
32% against the Democrat.
Matt was cool. How far is that from where you live?
Like 8 hours. I was actually asked yesterday, as soon as he resigned, I swear the ink hadn't even dried on that resignation letter, and I had someone text
Do
me
you have to
asking
live
me
in
if
district in Florida?
you have to live in district by the time you swear in.
Oh,
I got asked by someone if I was going to move to the Panhandle and run for that district in the special election. Um,
I suppose
that
everybody on War Room knows that you could be a politician, right? Does everybody know that?
Probably, and I mean, I considered running here in Florida.
No, I'm talking
This
about the posse. Does the posse? I'm asking. I don't know.
A lot of people have have mentioned that in the live chat. When I gave a speech in Virginia, someone came up to me and asked me if I was going to run. And then another time when I was in, I feel like it was in Virginia with, it was when my dad and I did the event for Bob Good and for Virginia 5. This is before the primary. And this couple came up to me after and asked me if I would consider running for Virginia 1, which ironically enough, before I moved to Florida, when Virginia did their whole redistricting, that became my new district.
Okay.
And that Republican is very much I wouldn't say a rhino, but he's not MAGA. He's just the go along to get along type of representative. Like, I bet you if I asked some of my friends in Congress if they knew this representative, they'd probably be like, "Who? What?" I mean, my college roommate, her stepdad's a congressman. I asked some of them, they said, "What state is he in?"
That's
Because I,
hilarious.
I think my friends, my college roommate and my friend, her stepdad, I don't think he leaves his office much when he's up in DC. So like most of them don't realize who he is.
It's not
But
necessarily an indictment. Could be a late bloomer.
I mean, they probably do know who he is, but they're saying they don't because he's never out and about.
Oh,
But
man. You know
um,
what runs through my mind when I hear that? And I'm not picking on this person at all,
mhm,
but there's people that I know that are in governance here in Minnesota. It's a job for them. I mean, it's their job. That's kind of a terrifying thought because I hold this whole process with such a sense of, I mean, I know it's profane, but it has an intense sacredness to it.
mhm.
So when I hear that, I think, not picking on this guy, but I think of this guy I know. It's a job. You know what's going on here? This party last night, I got to finish. I'm going to forget about it. We'll never get it. This party, it was a party to celebrate a loss, kind of like a wake, a happy wake. And everybody was talking, and uh, the congressional candidate that ran and lost was there, and he stood up and spoke. That was
Which,
great.
which one?
Tad Jude. Tad Jude for Congressional District 3 got waxed, 70,000 votes. Waxed. Okay?
Well, I met a few from Minnesota that lost either in the primary or general, so I was just wondering which
No, I
one it
mean,
was.
he's a public figure. I mean, he was there. But I stood up and I got wound up. I said, look, now, do y'all know what President Trump is doing? And they don't, okay? They don't. They have not read Agenda 47. They don't know what's going on policy-wise. I'm watching this. You know the difference between this time and last time? Whoa, it's a big difference. This is a crew coming in with very focused intent. And here's how I look at it at the grassroots, and this is what I said at the meeting. If every American citizen doesn't get involved and back this play, we're going to lose. Because these snakes that are going to start winding through the grass here, they have to get endorsed by the local parties to continue their political career in the future in the Republican Party. So if we're delegates and we all are coordinated, we all agree, because see, we're organized now. It's not called a cult, it's called being organized. We have a communications network that's still intact, right? If we see that somebody is irredeemable, because we're going to have the redeemable. We don't want to pull the trigger too fast down here in the field. Do you know, I'm asking for help. You can call me, because like we're like dogs on some of the dogs, you can't get them on a leash, okay? But for myself, speaking for myself, before I start going medieval on these people, I like to be coordinated. Like Tom Emmer. Tom Emmer, for example, because he might truly convert. Somehow, I have to leave that possibility open. I'm not a judge. Think of me as I'm in field. I need orders because I want to support the people that we support. I'm not speaking for anybody else. Myself personally, there's a strategy here that I want to see emerge that's so eloquent, and some of us just have to trust it. Now we have to trust. Another thing I said at the meeting. We won. Can the argument be over? That's my first question. From your perspective, this argument that's torn the party apart that you saw in Minnesota, if people were reasonable, isn't the argument over?
What do you mean
I
by
mean, if you were a Ron DeSantis person, like a
you mean the argument as in like Trump won, the fact that you guys did whoever in the state of Minnesota was against Trump or never Trumper, he won, so you have to either get behind him or take a hike. Is
That
that what you're
exact very well said. Thank you.
there's some never Trumpers in the state of Minnesota, and like I just said, he won. So you either support him or maybe a career in politics isn't for you anymore.
What about the ones that asked me to conspire with them to block President Trump's recent uh, candidacy? I actually had people in the party come to me, and they must have been dumb.
They need to really sit down and do self-reflection on if a career in politics is really what best suits them, because yes, it's President Trump now, but it's not going to end with him. This movement is going to continue on. And President Trump is a president for the American people. But like we were talking about, his cabinet, someone from his cabinet, I could see running in 2028. They're all young enough. And I think that from what you're talking about, they're probably hoping that someone like a Nikki Haley runs again, a neocon runs. Sounds like there's some neocons in the state of Minnesota.
Well, let me ask you about Ron DeSantis, just because I'm not in Florida.
Hmm.
Is he a neocon or is he MAGA? For
I
my
think he,
for my Minnesota Ron DeSantis crowd that were very anti-Royce and anti-Trump. I'm just want to know who he is because we're talking 2028.
I don't believe he's a neocon, but I don't think that he's fully MAGA. I think he's very much in the middle, and I think that he lost a lot of people's support when he decided to run for president in 2024, because especially because President Trump helped him get elected as governor the first time. So it's very much a stab in the back, and President Trump, as we've seen, is about loyalty. And if someone helps you get elected, why are you going to turn around and stab him right in the back? He would have had so many people behind him that are President Trump supporters had he waited until 2028 to run.
Got it. He would have been acceptable, except when it comes to the key dimension of grace, dignity, and loyalty, he failed miserably.
Hmm.
Got it. So he's very ambitious.
Hmm.
You know,
And now that Senator Rubio has been nominated to be Secretary of State, that leaves an open Senate seat. As long as Senator Rubio is confirmed, that leaves an open Senate seat here in the state of Florida. Governor DeSantis has the authorization to fill that Senate seat how he sees fit. So right now we're kind of at a toss up. Is he going to put forth someone that is in line with the MAGA movement? And I know Laura Trump's name's been thrown out there. She's technically a resident of North Carolina, so she and Eric would have to move down here with the kids. But I've heard her name thrown out there. I've also heard a DeSantis loyalist name thrown out there as well. So, and if I was reading this article, if the DeSantis person is put in and DeSantis decides he wants to run or he for that Senate seat in 2026 because Rubio's seat is up in 2026, then whoever DeSantis appoints wouldn't run. If it's his loyalist, wouldn't run, and DeSantis could run for that seat ahead of a 2028 presidential run. I don't think if DeSantis ran in 2028, he would get support to win a primary or to win the party's nomination, given his dumpster fire of a campaign in 2024. That is my personal opinion. Am I? I'm making it very clear. My personal opinion.
Oh, we're talking about a rift that's gonna have to get healed in 2028, or
Mhm.
some people are gonna have to move on.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, that's okay, that's politics. It's not personal, it's just business. I mean, like here in Minnesota, I would like all of the Minnesota officers of the party to go look at the electoral map since the rise of alternative conservative media, since the rise of Donald Trump, since the creation of this movement, and ask yourself, why are you getting in the way of this here in Minnesota? I mean, really, what are you doing? Whose payroll are you on? Because clearly the movement of the people in Minnesota is to the philosophy of republicanism. And it's not because of them. We got their data, they go back to the way back. Okay, so if we want to win, people, we have a leader, and we have a philosophy, and we have a strategy, and we have a tactic. And we got to get together and do it and quit doing politics like Tanner was talking to me before we came on. He's got a nihilist friend. He thinks the system is wrecked. You know,
Mhm.
it's only wrecked because people don't know how to work it. I mean, if we work this system together, we're going to have a much better country for freedom, for example, self governance, all the well being, all the good things, humanity. We're a pro human movement, right?
Mhm.
You know, this is what's really cool to me. This is going to be a sidebar off the reservation. If this regulatory environment gets rejiggered, I mean, the corruption and rot is really reduced, we might actually talk about real regulation of technologies that are no good for human beings. I mean,
Mhm.
the inertia in this move towards this technocracy is so intense, it's a glacier. And to slow it down, we all got to stop it if we want to, maintain our freedom.
Mhm.
I mean, sorry, I'm ranting. Everybody's got to get involved in politics now. Everybody. These
Yeah,
parties need to be full of patriots.
and I said this yesterday. Sorry, my days are all blending together these days. Yesterday on Steve Stern's call, election integrity
Yeah.
call, I said, yes, we won, but we cannot get complacent. We can celebrate, but we have to get back to work because 2 years is going to come very quickly and we have to keep the house red. So, yes, we can celebrate his victory and be joyous about that, but the work doesn't end.
Well,
And
the battle is just starting.
yeah, and I said, don't expect someone else to get into this battle and fight this battle for you. Everyone has to be involved.
Great.
Every single person, and that is how.
That's the
And I said, and
message.
I, and I said this on election night to the posse because I was. So my dad was in D.C. and I happened to be in Palm Beach, and at the convention center. And I did a hit for War Room, and my dad asked me to say a message to the posse. This victory for Donald Trump is because of the posse and because of the grassroots movement. It was the people that got involved, that door knocked, phone banked, wrote postcards, texted people, got people to the polls to vote. This is why Donald Trump won, because of the grassroots movement. It wasn't because of rhinos and the elite and the establishment. It was because of those people that were fed up and the once again the forgotten man in 2026 or 2016 he ran for the forgotten man, and that's exactly what I believe he was doing this time around because this dumpster fire of an administration made a lot more forgotten men and women, and the dumpster fire of an administration being Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, just to clarify. But I believe that this victory was due to the posse, but can't get complacent. The battle's just begun. And like you said, it's going to take everyone getting involved in politics. And that doesn't mean, becoming a precinct committeeman or a poll watcher or an election judge or things like that, but getting involved in one, finding America First candidates that want to run for federal level and even state level, even local level, like school board or, city council or things like that. But doing that in your own way, because not everyone's cut out for being in politics, but they can do their part to help this movement.
I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it down because we're going to get a lot of Minnesotans watching this.
Hmm.
And if you're in Minnesota, we need you to be a delegate. All you have to do is in caucus night in 2026, go to your caucus room and get elected as a precinct delegate. And that's going to take 2 hours. And then about 2 months later, go to your Senate district convention and run to be a Senate district delegate. That's going to take another 3 hours. Now you're into this for 5 hours. You're done for the year. That's it. Then the next year, when it comes time to endorse candidates, you know who you're going to be? You're going to be the most powerful person on planet Earth. That's who you're going to be. Because we're going to know, because see, we're in the holding pattern now, but we're going to know because we're listening to the command center who gets to stay and who gets to go. Tanner, we might have to start running Who Can Stay and Who Can Go as a theme song on the Professor Penn podcast. Put that down. That's our new intro. Okay? I love that. Okay? And then when we're delegates and we know who can stay and who can go, we'll vote. And this is how the movement continues forward to a new generation of leadership under President Trump's guidance and foresight, right? That's so cool. But let me tell you what's going to happen. You're talking about we can't give up. This next few months, because let me tell you how I view it from my street corner.
Hmm.
I think Donald Trump, if we were sitting here, just the two of us, he'd laugh when I'd say this because I had this revelation driving in. We're a giant gang. This is a gang, okay? And we have the best enforcers on planet Earth. We're a gang, United States of America. It's like a gang. The government is a gang. And the people that were running the gang, they were supposed to keep us safe. That was it. And they violated that. That was the overreach of the post World War II Democrat liberal order because they're globalists, right? And riding into town now, riding into town comes the end of the Democrat liberal order. The Republicans are coming to town. The Republicans are coming to town on task, on mission to end a 75-year paradigm. This is a cultural revolution. And what's about getting ready to happen will require every American citizen to be involved in politics. That's it, if you want to stay free. Because the pushback that's getting ready to come, do you think there's going to be pushback?
Yes.
Crazy.
Have you not seen the meltdowns that have occurred just by him announcing his cabinet members? Of course, there's going to be pushback, especially Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. There's going to be pushback.
Well, there's pushback in the Congress. Then President Trump's going to do a lot of things by executive order, right?
Because there's going to be pushback because a lot of these people have been getting away with things for so long and not good things for so long that now they're going to be exposed for the corrupt rot that they are. And they're afraid. They're 100% afraid. Nancy Pelosi.
Well, let me ask you a question. Speaking on this issue, just as an interesting issue,
Hmm.
I do detect, because I have a pulse,
Hmm.
there is a strong energy that says the criminals must be held accountable.
Yes. Hmm.
So, and this is going to happen through congressional investigation and Department of Justice investigation, theoretically.
Most likely.
And the goal of this, of course, will be spun as a personal attack on somebody. But
Oh,
what's really happening is the story will be told from another street corner about what was going on, what
yeah,
laws were.
their corruption and actual illegal activity will be exposed, but the left and mainstream media, which is the left or part of the left, will spin it as Donald Trump is a dictator. He's throwing his political opponents in prison. Hate to break it to you. Your candidate, your current president that's occupying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, they are dictators. If you're saying a dictator throws their political opponents in prison, what the hell do you think you are? You're a dictator. You threw Peter Navarro in prison and my father in prison for, oh, wait, not doing anything wrong. They claim, oh, contempt of Congress. They didn't do anything wrong. You threw them in prison because they were exposing the corrupt and filth that you are on the left, and you threw them in prison to shut them up. Hate to break it to you, you didn't shut them up. You only made them more powerful. My dad was out, what, a week before the election? And look what happened. Raheem and I both said, Raheem said it, I think, at the National Pulse and probably on Twitter, that he only needs a few days. He got back behind the mic and his voice was amplified. And I believe that my dad, and I might be biased, played a huge part in President Trump winning on Tuesday, November 5th. Because and I'm not saying it was just him, he motivated the posse. And even when he was away for 4 months, he still motivated the posse because they knew that he didn't want them to miss him. He wanted them to be active and involved and do whatever they could to help get Donald J. Trump back in the White House. And they did exactly that.
You know, I was going to say, and I got distracted by your very impressive oratory.
My rant.
Well,
I'm channeling my
I don't know
dad.
how we got there. Oh, because I was asking about this energy, which is so firm, and that's this should I stay or should I go thing transfer down into the grassroots. We have our own issues down here, and I was going to say, if you do this and you do 5 hours the first year and you're done, and the next year you go to a convention, it really averages out maybe 3 hours a year and watching War Room because you're a delegate to the state convention in Minnesota and you're a delegate to your congressional convention and you're watching War Room and you know exactly what to do. I mean, all you got to do is show up at a convention and you'll know exactly how to change the world. So we need everybody to get into and just find me. Just find me. If I could just say, you can just go to support@tireget.com. If you're in Minnesota, support at Tireget, that's TIREGET.com, which, by the way, Tireget is.
Promo code. Is there a promo code?
There is a
for
promo
the
code.
posse?
And now look, this is serious because people think, oh, there's so much money and fun in this. I'm going to just speak for myself. What I'm most happy because there's all this altruism and then there's your own ass. I was so happy Trump won for one reason. If they had won, the tyrannical plans they intend to put in place on freedom of speech would have made this job what we're doing right now. Whoa, very dangerous, right? And now we're not going to have to do that for 4 years. So, like, again, if you want to keep your free speech, you got to get into the party. It takes everybody. And you have to support War Room because this is risky and you know what happened and it's expensive. So the next time you buy tires, all you got to do Think of War Room. Go to tireget.com and then use the promo code War Room at checkout, and you got everything right, and you probably get to talk to me if you call in. TireGet, TireGet.com. TireGet is here for the movement and for all the broadcasters and channels and stations that are presenting this content for you. TireGet is a online e-commerce platform where you can buy your tires. Now, everybody buys tires, or most of us buy tires. There's everything there that you need for your vehicles. All kinds of different brands, premium major brands, premium private label brands, every kind of tire. You go there, you pick your tire. We will ship the tires to the installer right by your house at no extra charge. You pay TireGet to have your tires installed. It's a one-stop shop for everything you need in tires and the best customer service in the tire business. So the next time you buy tires, think of TireGet. You got to buy your tires from someone. Please buy them from us. Okay, that's it. I'm back. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you for supporting our efforts in Minnesota.
You're welcome.
You see, this is an act of support of Minnesota. In other words, Minnesotans, if we could get our together and get our party together, we could shine such a beacon of light upon Minnesota that, yea, verily, I say unto you, will make this state Republican. It's my mission and it's my purpose to join you in doing that. There.
Yeah. We're going to make Minnesota red in 2026 for the Senate race and 2028 for the presidential race.
2026 for the Senate race. You see, I'm not giving up the ghost. I'm wearing the hat.
I heard a rumor. About the candidate.
Yeah, Royce wants to run against Tina Smith, and he's just going to keep running. This is a thing about Republicanism. To all my Republican Party friends, who, of course, are all perfect. Oh, every one of them is perfect. Everybody in the Republican Party that's around me, we're all perfect. And that's really misunderstanding the philosophy of Republicanism. This is an anti-corruption philosophy. And the corruption that it's talking about is the corruption inside of me. So everybody that gets to live with unalienable rights, it's not being free to do anything. It's being free to do what you ought to do, which is to refine your free will and become a better person. That's what Republicanism allows us to do. It's called forming a more perfect union. So all of us are getting better. I learned so much on this campaign. I'm not bragging about learning, means that I had a lot to learn, but it's such a phenomenal opportunity. And what I want to say to the patriots that are listening, hey, politics is not fun in large part because you're not in politics. If we got into politics, all the good people that all kind of believe the same things and took the time to self-govern together, there'd be a lot less unpleasant. A lot less unpleasant. It's unpleasant because we're in a battle for control of the future of the country. But man, if everybody comes in, I want you to come in, Tanner. Tanner's not speaking, but Tanner's in the studio. I want all the young people to come in. So yes, Royce, who's young, who has the ability to move the inner city voters all over the country, if the Republican Party would get behind him, and they would understand that we want those cities with us. We're for them too. That's what we got to. You know what? That's our strategy in Minnesota, by the way. Maureen, we have a new mission and a new purpose. We're going into the cities.
New task and purpose.
Well, because if you look at the map, we won the state. We just lost the city. Hennepin County, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, actually, Royce could be so successful if the party purse string holders would open up the purse and give him the means to let those voters know who Republicans are. Why don't they want to do that?
Because they don't want this change, this new movement. Seems like they're, what is it, the go along to get along? They're happy with with the way things were. The neocon, the establishment, they're fine with that.
But didn't we
And,
just
and they don't like, how do I word this? They, as leadership or people in political positions in the state, don't like the change that Royce would bring. Clearly, 1.3 million people do like the change that Royce would bring.
yes, they did.
And if he had support of those people that weren't the go along to get along, then maybe he would have had more than Amy. And I want to say, for those people, those political consultants in the state of Minnesota, and you probably know who I'm talking about, if you think Royce was a bad candidate, you need to take a look and see if your candidate that you propped up in the primary was actually a decent candidate. Had your candidate won the primary, it would have been Amy by 30% in the general election. Because Ukraine Joe was not
He
going to get,
wasn't going to go.
well, he wasn't going to get 1 million votes. Who's going to vote for Ukraine Joe? So the political consultant that propped him up in the state of Minnesota that wants to go on Twitter and bash Royce, you might want to consider a new profession.
Oh, we talking about, oh,
Yeah, I don't want to mention their name. I don't want to give her any.
I get it. No problem. You know,
But
some of these people, I got to just say,
it seems like a personal thing at this point. Her candidate lost in the primary in August. Like, I'd love to see if she's going to put forth Ukraine Joe again in 2026.
I doubt it's personal. She's on somebody's payroll. I mean, Royce remains a ongoing place where Minnesotans can rally.
Hmm.
And we're going to be out in the streets working on this. 2026 coming. Tina Smith won her last election by getting 1,550,000 votes. So, we're not, we're close to the margin of error before we start trying. And she's not beloved like Amy Klobuchar. But, hey, we got 6 years to deconstruct. Wait, we have 4 certainly unobstructed years. See, this is why we won. You know what? I told this to my mother.
Hmm.
I love my mom. She's an original G of the other side of the football. And I'm talking about a real player. It's hard for me to even say this because she's alive and I got to talk to her. But we're not talking right now because she doesn't want to talk to me because I
Because Trump
told
won.
I told her in 2020 when I went into politics, because I've been in politics my whole life, but not local. She said, "Why are you doing it?" I said, "I have to undo everything you did to screw the state up. I'm sorry." And, she remembers stuff like that because we remember. And I was being inappropriate. But actually, as it's going to turn out, um, these people, they're going to lose because a better group of people, smarter, stronger, that were living their lives with the social compact of you guys do your thing, leave me alone. I don't want to do politics. That social compact got broke and it was not about the way we wanted it to be. So we're just all come in the game. And
Hmm.
when you get all the players come to the game, hey, that's what I was telling Tanner. He goes, geez, and you said the same thing. You know, why did the Democrats fall so far flat? No. You say, geez, well, she bad message, she sucked. They didn't get the social. No. We're so much better so quickly. We're rising like a rocket.
Well, yes, I agree with you on that, but I also think that the Democrats have gone so far left that they honestly believed that Oprah, J Lo, Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, George Clooney, like all of these elitists were going to somehow get people in their party to be like, yeah, let me think. I want to be just like them. I'm going to vote for Kamala. They're so out of touch with reality that people woke up and were like, I want to be able to afford groceries. I want to be able to feed my family. I want my children to be safe and not have to worry about being murdered by someone crossing the border illegally. Um, you know, logical things that people think of, not, I think I want my daughter to be able to get an abortion until 9 months pregnant. Like, that's not where most people are thinking or their heads are at when it comes to voting. And that's where the Democrats, it was all about women's reproductive rights. And hate to break it to you, abortion is not health care, no matter what the Democrats say. So, and I said this on election night, I got interviewed because international media, for some reason, didn't get credentialed for inside the convention center.
Okay.
So there were a lot of them, at least maybe some did, but a lot of them were like lined up outside the convention center.
Yeah.
And I got asked about that because that was on our ballot here in Florida, was Amendment 4. So right now we have a 6-week abortion ban.
Okay.
And the amendment was to get rid of the 6-week abortion ban and make it up to birth, or no,
As it is in
or
Minnesota.
or no limit on abortion.
Yeah.
And we shot that down here in Florida. It's still, the 6-week abortion ban is still in place. And
I heard that was because of some leftover from slavery law you got done that you needed 60% of the people to
oh
vote
yeah,
for it.
we're fascists down here in Florida. That's what Joyanne Reed said. We're fascists
Is
down in
that it
this
was that just
Florida.
specific to that specific vote, or is that just the way the rules are written for that type of vote in the state of Florida? I mean,
Um,
is every amendment like that, every time something like that comes up on the ballot, is it always 60% to get it to pass?
that I'd have to look into. I'm not. You're throwing me for one. I'm not 100% sure on
Oh,
that.
okay. Well, that's
I'll have to
interesting.
get. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Well, it doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why. Because there's rules, right? So
Mhm.
somebody used the rules, one way or the other, in the favor of making it a 60% vote, right?
It,
Correct?
they did, but in this case, Florida was fighting for the unborn. We were protecting, and with resounding measure, we wanted to protect the unborn. And going back to what I was saying, the Democrats are so out of touch with reality that they think that women's reproductive rights, or the right to have an abortion until 9 months pregnant, is something that every American, that's their highest priority. And after the election, so many people that I grew up with or know from the state I grew up in, which is a very blue state, which surprisingly actually had a lot of parts turn red in it this election. Um, but I was just going through Instagram, and a bunch of them were posting pictures of like their nieces or their daughters, and so distraught, like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry this country failed you. The the country did not fail them. We won to protect your daughters. I mean, look at these women that were killed by illegal immigrants. They can't have an amazing life because they're dead because of an illegal crossing the open southern border. This wasn't about reproductive rights at all. That wasn't a priority for most Americans. And the fact that Democrats are still holding on to that just shows how out of touch with reality they are. And the fact that, so many people shot that down. Oh, we have internalized misogyny. I have internalized misogyny because I voted for Donald Trump. Get out of here with that bull.
Yeah, they have an ideological framework that's too far from the natural way, and it's gone out past where it can go, and it starts to collapse on itself. They can't let go. They can't even see, some of them, the ones that are true ideologues, they can't even understand why they lost. That's why they are putting it on racism and misogyny. They
And sexism, because honestly, young men saved us this election. And
Mhm.
as a female, I want to say women saved us, but no, men, especially young men, saved us. They came out in full force to vote.
And they voted in historic
Donald J.
numbers.
Trump. They voted
And
red
isn't
down
it
the
interesting that
ballot.
Donald Trump had a podcast strategy?
It is, and I think that, a political consultant who is a millennial, I believe he's a millennial, and his youngest son
Yeah.
helped with that. And I was actually talking about this at the gym because, my trainer's a Gen X, I'm a millennial, and some of the other people at the gym are Gen Z. And one of the Gen Zers said, you know, President Trump going on those podcasts brought out a lot of young male voters because they're like, "Oh, hey, I wouldn't have listened to what he had to say if he was on Fox News or something else my parents watch, but I listened to these podcasts and that's really cool that he was on this podcast and I got to hear where he stood on certain things. And hey, I agree with that. So let me get out there and vote." That's how he got young men voters.
It's very cool.
It is,
This
and
goes
it was a great strategy, and the fact that Kamala Harris spent, like, what was it, $1 million or something like that for the Call Her Daddy podcast, and it didn't even not it might not have been $1 million, it might have been in the six figures, and they didn't even get 1 million views.
you know, um, Roy said to me, this is in, December 2022, he said, "The reason Republicans lose is they're not cool." And I
Well, we changed that this
yes,
election
we
cycle.
did, didn't we? Winning is kinda cool, right? Makes us kinda cool. What we're doing in Minnesota, I need 500 Republicans, just 500. I need 500 people in the posse that live in Minnesota that will go anywhere, anytime, to stand together with signs and stand and wave at people and let people know that there's hundreds of Republicans. They'll get the courage then to give up their evil ways and join with us. This is how we're going to win back Minnesota. We need 500 people for that, and we got to go into the city together. When one person goes in, like I go in by myself or with my friend Edwin, when we go in just the two of us, and Lisa, his wife, we go in three of us. Three of us. We're in the city. It's not very effective. Okay? And I know if you went in by yourself, you might be afraid. Actually, there's nothing to be afraid of. But if 50 of us went, like next weekend, hey, we'd have a good time. That's the kind of work we got to do here in Minnesota. What we lose in Minnesota, and it's like this in any state that did not vote for Donald Trump, you could say there's no ideas in no state. Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter how the game is rigged. We have to play the game with the rules we got. We got to get into the city. We, the Republicans, like the Republican Party says here in Minnesota, Maureen, stay in your lane, stay in your Senate district. The whole state's red. What kind of strategy is that to keep your forces dispersed when the people you're working against are in one little area? The whole state's got to put resources into the Twin Cities. Otherwise, what we're doing is a losing effort. That should be. Did I diagnose that correctly, or am I making a mistake strategically?
I I think you're diagnosing it correctly.
Why are we playing with the old rules that we always lost with? Like putting Matt Gaetz at the Department of
It's
Justice.
because some people, especially in Minnesota, didn't you say the average age was like 400 and something?
462. The
Yeah.
average age of the Republic.
Well, there we go. They can't let go of the old ways. It's like holding on to something. the older you get, the more stubborn you get.
No,
Hate
but
to
it's
break it to you.
not
Hate
always,
to
not
hate to break
always. Careful,
hate to break it to you.
careful with
The
the
older you get,
judgments.
the more stubborn you usually
Careful
get.
with the
I'm stubborn.
judgments.
I'm only 36.
Did I hear usually? Did you say usually? That's good.
I
That's
said usually, not
great.
always, not always. I'm not one of those people that's going to say every old person is stubborn, because that's not the case. I just know the older people get, usually the more stubborn they get. I am stubborn. I am my father's daughter, and I'm half his age. Well, a little less than half his age. However, I'm not saying he's stubborn either, but it seems like people in the establishment and rhinos, but more the establishment, deep state, won't let go. They're holding on with everything they have to the old ways and won't accept change.
You know,
And
my friend Tom says that they just get old and die out.
well, if in certain positions, if there's a way to challenge them for those positions, we need to do it. Like, leadership positions, primary them, or if there's a vote, run against them.
You know, this is another thing. I was just sitting here thinking, you know, if we had 10,000 more people playing here in Minnesota, this wouldn't be very hard. What did you have some many hands make light work? Who said, did you say that, Maureen?
No,
Somebody said that in the campaign. I don't know who said it. I'd heard it before, but I hadn't heard it in a long time. Many
but I'll take
hands,
credit for it. I'm just
many
kidding.
hands make light. You know, this is the first year I ever felt old because there's so much energy goes into politics. Many hands make light work. Dan said that? Cool. Well, Dan, okay, great. Tanner said, Dan Schultz said that many hands make light work. And Dan Schultz understands this is correct. If all of us in every state would just flood these parties down to the precinct levels and knock on our neighbors' doors and actually take this movement seriously, this is not entertainment for me. I mean, Maureen, we're having fun, but,
Mhm.
you know, there's other things to do, right? Right?
Mhm.
See, we don't even remember. I can't remember. You know what I used to do on Sunday afternoon? I used to go to the club, lift weights for 2 hours, go out for a nice brunch with the family, and I'd come home Sunday, put the laundry in the, because I do the laundry at the house. I like doing, don't ask me why I do the laundry. And I'd start doing the laundry, and then I'd sit down and I'd watch 6 hours of football while I did the laundry. And that seemed like a pretty damn good day. It seemed like a pretty good way to spend Sunday. And I don't think that's wrong that we would aspire to reach a level in our country again where we settle this and we go back to sound governance, first principles, and live our lives with well being. I mean, you know, we're so into this fight that we think it has to go on to, if everybody showed up, the fight would be over. If everybody showed up in the posse, forget about the people that don't, if just the posse everybody showed up, everybody, because we could be in a great victory together, it's
Mhm.
over. I
Mhm.
mean, just what the posse has done is push the ball over the line. But I'm talking about in the party. In the party, if you found me and we got you going in the party, whoa, Minnesota, we're going to have control the reins of power here. And see, they're going to watch this, the people that track me, and they are going to shit their pants. Because I've told them repeatedly that I had the connections to shine the light of truth into Minnesota in a way that's never been done. And Maureen,
Mhm.
thank you for helping me do it. See, people think, what are we doing here? Maureen and I like each other, but we're on a mission from God. If we were this a mission, this is a mission. I particularly when you talk about that about the unborn. Wow, very cool. That even see that's in this. That's another thing. It's up to the states now, right?
It is.
Right.
And had we elected Kamala Harris, she would have tried to codify it into law that you have a right to kill the unborn at a
Oh, this
federal level.
this woman that got elected from Congressional District 3, my district, my my personal responsibility. And let me
Mm-hmm.
tell the people in my area, the lack of performance is starting to piss me off. Please don't make me get involved any deeper. Please. We need to perform. This guy lost, Tad Jude, nice guy. He always smiles and waves at me, and I appreciate that. Kelly Morrison beat him. Kelly Morrison was in the Minnesota State Senate. She wrote our bill here. She's the doctor, Kelly Morrison. She's an OBGYN. Doesn't that sound perfect, Maureen? She's the doctor. I think her tagline was, "We need a doctor in the house." A doctor. She's the doctor of death. She was the Minnesota State Senator who sponsored the bill, which was the first bill the Democrats passed when they got control of Minnesota, which ensconced reproductive health rights
Mm-hmm.
in our legal framework. And it's a very, and I read bills, right? I read them. I read
You
them.
do.
I do.
You
I
do.
read them. And like a short one is,
You print them out, even if they're like 1,000
oh, I
pages.
read them. I can't help myself.
So all those Democrats get real upset. He wastes the paper. I'm just
Right.
kidding.
No, I print them on two sides. Wait a second.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
This woman wrote the bill, and I read the bill because people were saying it's up to, there's no time restriction in it, which means it's forever, right? And I thought this bill is going to be like 300 pages long because they're all like that because they don't
Mhm.
want you to read them. It takes a certain kind of twisted background. You have to have a lot of legal experience to read this stuff. It's legalese, right? It was one paragraph, no, two paragraphs. I read the thing. I go, that's it? It's that simple. And she wrote that and she sponsored it and they passed it. And she was working on, before she got elevated, because, Dean Phillips quit to run for president. That's how we had this, change of the guard here, because it opened up a space. So she went, took that space. But in the Senate, as my area, my senator, state senator, she was also working on a euthanasia bill. So she did the abortion bill and she did the euthanasia bill, and she's a doctor. A doctor.
So Tanner, you're probably gonna have to edit this for the YouTube audience. So basically, she wanted to kill you in the womb, and if she couldn't kill you in the womb, she wanted to be able to kill you while you're outside of the womb. So she wants to lower the population number.
If YouTube won't let this up and I get a strike, and Tanner probably will edit it, we're going to be up on the War Room platform.
We are, so
And
they'll get to hear me go off. But the woman is Dr. Death. She wants to be able to kill you in the womb, and if she can't, then kill you outside of the womb. She deserves to be nowhere near any type of authority to pass legislation.
And Tanner's going to back me up on this, Maureen. First of all, you're a guest here. We don't censor what our guest said. And I hope YouTube has the good grace to know and to go back where I've said many times, why would I, as a man, be commenting about something I don't understand? I mean, I understand it religiously for myself, but I don't want to enter into a fray when there's these very articulate women, because it's a woman's deal, right? Am I wrong about that?
No, but that's where the Democrats were like, well, why does a man or the government get to tell me what to do with my body?
Can I
So
tell you right there at the base, when you talk like that, Maureen, when you talk like that, we're already not speaking to each other clearly, because I don't take my marching orders from man. I mean, it's like I'm not listening to that. I want to follow constitutional law, but I'm saying, if somebody said to me, why do I have to take my orders from a man? Well, who are you taking your orders from, ma'am?
God.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to avoid that misogynistic unholiness, let's get the polarities corrected.
Well, you do realize that liberals don't believe in God, so they'd be like, "It's still a man you're taking orders from."
Um, I
Because
can only,
they don't believe in God on the left.
that's true, and that's what this is really all about.
It's and I said this before. I said this election was good versus evil,
Okay.
and good won.
Well, they're watching you right now, and this paragraph could end up on in the Atlantic in next month's articles because what the left is saying is, and this is very interesting, what the left is saying is that this is exactly what it is. It is. And we have to admit it to ourselves. This is a cultural war. It's not like no longer been diverted into abortion. Like,
Mhm,
here, go over here and fight over here for scraps. A bunch of people make money off of this industry. No, that's not what it is. This is a full blown clash of two narratives.
mhm,
One narrative calling my narrative disinformation, malinformation. And had they had a chance to start a war, it would have been, you violated the Espionage Act of 1917. So this whole thing and I understand this acrimony because the people at the front of the funnel that are really at the front lines, you know how serious this is. We're still sitting back here at headquarters. They're at headquarters. We're sitting there out in the front lines. We think it's bad. Oh, we're playing we're in the little leagues out here. I get it.
sandbox in the sandbox.
We're in this great. However, what you're saying and I'm very acutely aware of that, and I do have 157 podcasts talking about this. This is the deconstruction of a paradigm. This is a huge paradigm shift. And it's going to shift because they've lost control of the narrative.
Mhm,
Now, the issue that I'm interested in working with you in these future opportunities we get together and talk about this is how do we shape this narrative because we're going to govern. And I'm interested in governing. There's going to be like any time there's a victory. It's always a problem. Like that scene in Saving Private Ryan when they finally broke through on D-Day and they got up on top of that fortification, they just shot some Germans for drill. Just for drill. They were pissed. I mean, a lot of people got hurt, right? But then it settled down and they took prisoners and they had to govern, right? So I'm
mhm.
really interested in the governing part because the movement needs to be sustainable and we can't lose control of the narrative because we can get out over our skis too. I mean, that's just my opinion. And I don't know who's going to get what for did what. We'll see. I mean, when they start coming out with the evidence, I'd like them to go all the way back and expose the way they railroaded Richard Nixon out of the White House during the Watergate period. There's actually scholarly work that the same kind of group of people that pulled off what you're living through pulled off the Nixon deal.
I want them to show the documents on who killed Kennedy. I'd like to know that.
Well, you're
I'd like
put,
that to be exposed.
the left is getting a little jicky because when you start putting names like Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz up, I
Mhm.
mean, and I just think that I just
And
ha I have to say this, please. Please, I'm a
mhm,
business person,
mhm.
and I'm not close I mean, I don't know Trump. I mean, I've only been in the room with him, but I know business, right? And this guy is a learning machine. This guy is learning at an incredible rate, and he is maniacally brilliant in what he's doing. It's so cool to be close enough to it to feel it. It's just cool. And watching them react because they know. But they did the same thing to Royce, actually. They labeled him and did this. They're going to label these guys, and the machine's doing a good job of it, right?
Well, the left is, especially with Pete as SecDef, is having a meltdown because he wasn't a four-star general when he got out. He was a major when he got out. They feel like he doesn't have enough experience to be the Secretary of Defense.
Can I ask a question I don't know the answer to?
Hmm.
This is a very sincere and a revealing question of myself. Since you're in the gang there, those people that are at the top, the gang leaders, did they all work their way up through the muck and the mire and serve under fire? The people at the top.
You're talking about our current SecDef?
I'm talking about the current crew and the crew recently that have been running the show.
So, our current Secretary of Defense, General Lloyd Austin, post 9/11, let's just say he was so, like, rank wise out of the boots on ground daily, like, understanding of it. I mean, he oversaw the withdrawal out of Iraq, but he was a general at that point, not like a 4-star general, but he was a general at that point. You're so far removed from what is going on basically at the grassroots effort, like the lowest level. So if you asked him about the withdrawal from Iraq, I bet you he wouldn't be able to tell you what exactly happened because he didn't have eyes on it. And I was boots on ground part of the withdrawal out of Iraq. That's why I have such an issue with how Afghanistan happened, because he was part of the withdrawal out of Iraq. So the botched withdrawal in Afghanistan should have never happened. And he oversaw that. He and General Milley oversaw that. And now 13 families don't have their children because of this, when that was preventable. That should have never happened. And I think that we need to get away from 4-star generals so out of touch with what it actually means to be like in the fight. So I 100% support Donald Trump's pick for SecDef, because he has been in, like, on the front lines, understands the issues, been involved with organizations regarding the care of veterans. So he grasps it more because he was going through the ranks,
In
and
other words,
he is not so far removed from those ranks now than a 4-star general is what I'm trying to say, without becoming a word salad. But
well, it's a very.
I
I
think
think
that,
you're trying to express something. I can feel what you're saying.
and I think that, back in the spring, I was at Mar-a-Lago and I was talking with someone on Team Trump, and I just happened to ask them who was going to be the secretary of the VA. And they jokingly said, "Not you. It's probably going to be some old white guy." And I laughed and I said, "Well, therein lies the problem. I don't care what the color of their skin is. The old part is what I have an issue with. Why do we keep putting people in positions like this that are so far removed from the issues? You need to have someone in those positions that has either gone through the issues that are occurring. So, like for the VA, maybe has gone through the VA system." Now, one of the names I know that was put up for it, this gentleman happens to be around my dad's age. So they are older than me, but happens to be a mentor of mine. So I think that they would be a great person for Secretary of VA. But I think that it needs to be just like with the SecDef, someone that grasps what all of this means. And they don't have to be so far removed in a 4-star general or a retired general.
Yeah, I think that the pick, you know, from my perspective, any of these picks that are so disruptive are serving their purpose. However it
I,
plays out. That's why I say it's such a eloquent move by President Trump. He can't lose with, if any of these guys go down in the process, hey, the snakes couldn't keep it together. We know who they are. We're just going to be waiting. I will be, not everybody, but part of us will be waiting for clearance from headquarters, and we'll go after some of these people because they're gonna reveal themselves right off the bat. Right now, we're going to see who they are. And I think if we make a good case, I think the Warriors, like, you can make a great case that you want someone from your age group who understands the suffering of the job and will
It
be and will be more judicious and more cautious in the use and the commitment of the sons and daughters, my sons and daughters, to wars of discretion. And
I
they hate that, don't they?
oh, I agree, and I brought this up on War Room on Veterans Day. There were 7,053 deaths in Afghanistan and Iraq post 9/11 in the wars that we have been in both of those countries. As of 2021, when a report was done, there were 30,000 veteran and military suicides. 30,000 as of 2021. And deaths in country were 7,053. Now, 3 years later, it's probably closer to 40,000 suicides. The military industrial complex is totally okay deploying America's sons and daughters. And a lot of those senators that are part of that military industrial complex would never send their sons and daughters to fight in a foreign battlefield. They're like, oh, you can do that, not my kids. I mean, I had family members back when I was in. A recruiter called one of my family members' houses. She said, "Well, my boys aren't going to go. It's okay for your niece to deploy to a war zone, but not your sons? Not my boys." That's the mentality like that I feel like the Senate, the elites in the Senate, your kids can go, not mine. And I said this on the show. I said, you know, they deploy America's sons and daughters over and over and over again and break them and then throw them out like the garbage they think they are and treat us like garbage. And that's why we need someone as Secretary of VA that's going to basically fix the entire system, because what we have now is someone that's like, okay, we care about our veterans, but we're going to give them the crappiest healthcare we can while we give illegals crossing the border whatever they want. Oh, you want a nice hotel to stay in? Go ahead. You want food stamps or an EBT card? Go ahead. Oh, veterans, you want to actually be seen for something due to your deployment? You got to wait 6 months to a year. Oh, I'm sorry. You developed cancer because you were by a burn pit? Oh, okay. I guess we'll treat you when it's like stage 2 or 3. It's ridiculous how we treat people that risk their lives for this country, and then people that are just coming across the border like, oh, with a welcome sign down there this administration's put up. Get whatever you want. Oh, you've had a rough life in whatever country you came from. Here, take from us. It's ridiculous, and I think that's why we need people that aren't gonna go along to get along. They're not gonna be like, okay, we're just gonna keep it as is. They're gonna fix it.
Well, yeah, okay, there you go. They're only gonna be able to fix it if everybody has their back.
Yeah, but that's and to that point, I think that we need, you know, the secretaries of these different departments and undersecretaries or deputies are Senate confirmations. Chief of staff and other positions within those different organizations are presidential appointees.
Mhm.
So when I was on the show on Monday, my dad said, vying for a position within the VA. I mean, I would love to be chief of staff of the VA or chief of staff to the Secretary of Defense. I would be honored if President Trump appointed me to either one of those two positions.
Well, great.
Now, I'm not saying that he will. I'm not saying that at all. I would be honored to serve in any capacity in this administration. Do not get me wrong. I love my job as War Room CEO. I've had this conversation with my dad. So I'm not blindsiding him with saying this. He knows we've had this conversation where I stand, but I think that we need people that are going to not go along to get along, that are going to actually want to make change. And we need to get the people that are just, I don't want change and it's fine the way it is. They need to be gone. Bye bye. Pack your office. You're done here. Thank you for your service. You're done. We're sending Kamala packing. They can pack up with, you know, Mamala. Go pack with Mamala and get out.
So what we're saying here is we have a whole new young group of leaders
Yes.
coming into government, and President Trump is wise enough to seed the government with young nationalists that are going to be intent on actually changing the system.
Yeah, because we're tired of the rot that is in DC. We're tired of it and we want change. And the American people want change. That's why, with resounding measure, they voted out this dumpster fire that's in there now.
Well, no, okay, I'll go back to something in closing, what I started out with, because you know, thank you for your time. I mean, I think you're going to run out of time. But my question is, like in the state of Minnesota,
Hmm.
and I want a resounding agreement about this. The argument in the party, theoretically, is over. Am I right about this?
Repeat yourself again.
The argument in our party, the Republican Party, between this neocon wing and the Trump movement, that argument really has to be ended, correct? It's not
Yeah,
really, the people kind of told us how they felt about it, didn't they?
they did. They did. And if you watch my dad coming out of court on Monday, he said exactly that with some F words in there too.
I hope it's public record. Then I'm going to play
Oh,
it on a coming podcast.
wait, can I play it now?
Of course you can. It'll be a good way to go out. Sure, fantastic.
Mr. Bannon, you want to say anything?
Yeah, how did Nancy Pelosi and Tish James, thank you very much, appreciate you. How did they like getting their ass kicked on Tuesday? The American people rendered a verdict on their lawfare. You know what the American people told them to do? Go fuck themselves.
Yeah, well, you see, there's a hard
And
edge.
that to you.
There is a, a hard Irish edge on this. And, you know, it's like I think they called it the Irish Republican Army. I think. Something like
Mhm.
that, right? They're Republicans. My point being, we're going to go out with this fantastic marching order from the general. Because my question has been, wasn't this issue solved? And apparently the marching orders is, as we're going to see in this Alco clip, right? And I think everybody in the Minnesota Republican Party and all the other state parties need to understand that the energy that's coming at you, that's the energy. So please, we have communists to fight. Let's fight the communists. Why would we fight each other?
I agree. Get on board or pack your stuff.
Right,
We're not about the establishment, the old way of doing things.
right.
The American people spoke on Tuesday, November 5th. They don't want the old way of doing things. They're done with it.
You know, there's a precedence for this. You know what it was? Jesus walked into the temple and turned over the tables of the money changers.
Hmm.
That's that's about the last time it went down quite like this. I mean, we're really capable here of the American people of picking up this mantle from Trump and really rejiggering things about human well-being. He sends that signal by putting RFK around him. I mean, he's doing some profound cultural changes. It's really cool. Maureen, it's great to see you.
You too.
We'll do this again soon, I hope.
I know each time I come on, I try not to get you banned from YouTube.
It's okay. Rumble's fine. I'll see you later. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You
Thanks.
too.
Bye-bye. Yeah.